Okay, so in this video, just going to have a look at the square root function. So before we said y squared equals x. Well, I can actually rearrange this so we have y equals plus or minus the square root of x. Okay, I've got y equals something x now. Where I've actually got two equations. I've got y equals positive square root of x, or y equals the negative square root of x. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're splitting it in half. So remember our y squared equals x. Okay, it looks like that, something like that. Okay, essentially what I've done is split it in half. So I've got the positive square root of x. Well, that'll be this half here. Okay, so if you think about it, it's just going to be that part there because it's all positive numbers. And for the other one, it's going to be the one underneath. Okay, minus square root of x. It's just a reflection of that same equation just underneath it in the negatives. Okay, so what I can actually say now is the square root of x just looks like that. And remember this point here at 1, 1. Well, that's going to be the same over here at 1, 1. So it's an important point because it shows whether we've been dilated or translated, moved left or right, etc. We also have it touching at 0, the origin. Okay, so that's the square root function. Okay, so just some key features of the square root function. We've got an endpoint here at the origin. So at the end point, endpoint at 0, 0. Okay, at the origin. We can also say that as x gets bigger, or x tends to infinity, okay, y also does the same. Okay, so as x gets bigger, so does y. We can also say defined only for x greater than 0. Okay, anything below that it's not defined, and that's because we can't get the square root of a negative number. So we can say the domain, therefore, is going to be all real numbers, all positive real numbers, including the set 0. So just like our y squared equals x function. Has a one-to-one correspondence, and the upper half of the sideways parabola. Essentially what it is, as I said, we cut it in half, we get the upper half of the sideways parabola. Okay, so that's the y equals the positive square root of x. Just a couple of variations. Okay, so if that's the positive square root of x, okay, this is going to be the negative square root of x. So you got positive and negative. This one's different. We can actually get this one. And I'm just going to say that it is the negative square root of negative x. Okay, and we can actually get that because all these numbers down here are negative numbers. So, for example, we've got negative 2 here. Well, at x equals negative 2, we get negative negative 2, which becomes positive. So we get the square root of the negative square root of positive 2 in the end, okay, at that point. And we can also say, that should be positive. This one down here should be negative square root of negative x. Okay, that one's positive because we get y values positive there. Down here they'll be negative, so it's negative square root of x, negative x. Okay, so just a few variations there. Transformations of the square root function. So we can actually say the y equals square root function is the general equation ax minus h, okay, and then plus k at the end. So like our other formulas, okay, gets moved left and right, up and down. So we've got an endpoint at hk. Okay, it's not a turning point, it's an end point. If a is greater than 0, the end point is minimum. Okay, endpoint is minimum. If it's less than 0, it's going to be a maximum point. Oops. It can either have one or no x-intercepts, and it can either have one or no y-intercepts. Domain is going to be from h to infinity, and the range is going to be from k to infinity. If a is greater than 0, if it's less than 0, it's going to be the opposite, so negative infinity to k. Okay, two options there, just depending on what value a has. So we'll go through an example. So sketch, this is example 14, sketch y equals 2 x plus 1. Take 4, stating domain and range. So endpoint, what's our endpoint? Oh, it's going to be minus 1 and minus 4. Y-intercept, as usual, let x equals 0. So we have y equals square root of 0 plus 1, take 4. So it's just going to be square root of 1, take 4, so minus 3. Except we've got a 2 there, so it's actually minus 2. X-intercept, what happens at y equals 0? It'll be 2 square root of x plus 1 take 4 equals 0. Okay, plus 4 divide by 2. Okay, take the square of it. And then x equals 3. Okay, from there I've got my points. So we've got minus 2 for our y-intercept. We have positive 3 for my x-intercept. And we've got a endpoint at minus 1, minus 4. So down here somewhere. So connecting the dots should look like that. And I just want to label that point there. This point here and this point here. So that's it. So that's sketching the graph. Okay, domain. Okay, where's my domain? Well, I start at minus 1. Okay, and I go on to infinity. Remember infinity with open bracket. Range. Start at minus 4, go up to infinity. So that's it for question 14a. Part B, so we've got f of x equals the square root of 2 take x. Got to state the domain. Well, if I was to graph that, I'm not going to. Domain is our x values. Okay, we can't have a negative value in there, so we can say 2 take x has to be greater than 0. Greater than or equal to 0. So what values 2 take x greater than or equal to 0? Well, I can move x across and say 2 is greater than x, or x is actually less than or equal to 2. So therefore, my domain is going to be from 2, other way around, negative infinity, so all numbers less than 2. Okay, that's my domain. Part 2, sketch the graph of f of x. Okay, need to rearrange this a little bit. So at the moment we've got f of x equals square root of 2 take x. Just want to rearrange it a little bit. So inside the brackets I'm going to take minus 1 out. So negative, so it'll be negative 2 and positive x. Okay, just rearranging it. It looks like something like that. So the end point is going to be 2, 0. Okay, remember this is my h. This is my h. I haven't been adding anything on the other side. So my h is the opposite. Y-intercept. Okay, we'll let x equals 0. So y equals negative 0 take 2. So positive 2 square root of 2. And from there, I can pretty much graph that function. So we've got a y-intercept at square root of 2, somewhere here. An endpoint at 2, 0. Okay, actually I'll say it over here, about 2. And that's the square root of 2. And so from there, it's just connecting the dots. Looks like that. Okay, so that's y, or f of x equals 2 take x. Part 3 says form the equation of the sideways parabola of which it is a part. So the square root function is y take square root of 2 take x. Our parabola is y squared equals whatever our y is, which is... Okay, so square that, so we can say y squared is actually 2 take x. Again, could rearrange it a little bit. As that. It doesn't really matter, this one's fine. Okay, so that's a square root function. Now I'll just go through one more example. So this is example 15. Okay, where they've given us the graph of the square root function. Starts at 0.51, goes through the origin and down there somewhere. So what it's asking is form a possible equation for the square root function. So the graph opens to the left, and x is less than 0.5. So let the equation, okay, we've got our general formula. Okay, we've got an endpoint at 0.5 and 1, so we can say a is the square root of x take 0.5, and it's been moved up 1. I just need to find what a is, so using 0, 0, 0 equals a, and k is actually 1 in this case, because we've been moved up 1, so I can say negative, negative, make positive, so square root of 0.5 plus 1 equals 0, so a is going to be, okay, take 1 across, divide by the square root of a half, so take 1 divided by 0.5. If I do some solving, it's actually a equals square root of 2. Okay, just not going to go through that. So the equation is y equals minus square root of 2, square root of minus x plus 0.5 plus 1. Okay, not very nice. I can simplify it. I'm not going to do that just to keep the video short. You can have a look at that example on page 301. So that's the square root function, and we'll have a go at some of the questions from 6.5. Thanks.